This American Life that I listened to complete this assignment was episode 431, See No Evil. The overview of this episode is an exploration of people who willfully try to ignore or turn a blind eye to something. Some global issues that are covered in this episode include abuse of power, as well as nuclear disasters. In this episode, there isn't one specific presenter. There are multiple presenters who each present a different story that relates to the topic of the episode. Even though there's multiple presenters, the editorial style of the episode is still consistent throughout each story. The editorial style of this episode, therefore the stories as well, is informal and is set up to make the stories feel more personal. The stories discuss the main topic of the episode, which is about how people ignore evil things that happen in the world. In this episode, the prologue introduces the topic for the episode. Then the set of stories are told by the various presenters. The theme of the episode, See No Evil, is that even good people can ignore or turn their backs on evil that happens in the world. By using multiple acts, it helps listeners differentiate between the different stories. And it also gives the listeners at least a moment or two to kind of collect their thoughts on the previous story before their thoughts have to go into a new story. The structures of the stories told in this episode all pretty much the same. They all consist of the presenter asking a guest questions. Then, after the guest answers those questions, the presenter says something in response to the guest's answer, or they ask another question that is specifically towards what the guest just said. The presenter ends the episode by thanking the guest for sharing their story. The interviewing style of this episode is personal and informative. The interviewer gets the story out of the interviewee by asking specific questions about the interviewee's experience. By using real-life stories, it helps the listeners to connect with the story on a deeper and more personal level. And what I mean by this is whenever you hear a real-life story, and especially when you hear it coming from the person who lived through it, you just get in touch with your emotions about that story more than if it was a fiction story. And the reason that is because you know it happened. So you can't necessarily hide behind the defense mechanism of, oh, this will never happen in the real world.